Hey everyone, welcome to class 2. I'm sorry we couldn't meet in person, but let's see what kind of fun we can have today. We're going to be kind of talking about the plan, and it's a little bit of a complex thing. As I was designing this, I kind of realized, um, that we have areas that you really need to kind of understand: camera, lighting, sound, production design, and then translate those ideas to paper. But we need to understand the terms. You need to know the terms and the function of the camera specifically. We'll start here in order to be able to be effective in your communication with various departments. And that's why um, we started with talking about structuring and formatting the screenplay correctly. And it's all about communication with the departments. So we start with the script that's formatted in a correct way, that you then translate the script into different things like storyboards that I'm sure you're all familiar with. And what those storyboards do is become an effective way for the director to work with the camera department so that uh, what the director is visualizing can be brought to life. Now, yes, sometimes cinematographers take a little bit more of a lead, especially with like novice directors or directors who maybe are more about the actors, and they trust their DP to kind of come up with a little bit more of the planning. But there's kind of different things that we're going to look at today to know how to develop and create that plan. But we need to talk about some of the terminology and the functionality of the camera and lighting. And it's important to just have a brief understanding, I guess. You don't need to get your doctorate in understanding this. Your education's growing, so one, don't let it overwhelm you, but you want to have the vernacular, the terminology down and an understanding of it. That way, if you go out and direct and you hire a DP, you know what kind of lingo to use and you know what it is that you want so that your cinematographer, your DP understands what it is that you want because excuse me, it can be frustrating to get back after you're done filming and realize that the shots are not at all what you want. So let's let's go ahead and start talking about some of the more general, and then we'll get into the specifics of camera functions. But let's start in the general. Let's talk shot sizes. Now we can talk a little bit about the level first, where on the if we're looking at the character, where is the camera placed in terms of height of that character? But then also we can break it down. I'm sure you're all familiar with uh, Mr. Mr. DeVille. I'm ready for my close up. Close up shots are close up. Medium shots are medium, and full shots are full shots, and everything is just kind of in between with some fun terminology. So really, if you can remember close up, medium, sometimes you'll hear full shot as wide shot, close, medium, wide, full. Full just means that you're getting the full picture of the character. But if you remember those, everything is just kind of halfway between everything. So we'd have a medium full shot, a medium close up, and then an extreme close up. Let's kind of look at some examples. One kind of fun one is called a cowboy shot, which is between a medium full and a medium. And they just call it that because in Westerns, this is where, the gun on the holster. So just kind of one of those for fun out there that you will hear. Shot size specifically, they kind of can do a lot of things more than just capture the information. They can speak to the state of mind of someone. Uh, some tell the audience a story just in the choice that was the director made. What are we trying to get the audience to look at? And then some are chosen just for convenience. It's sometimes easier just to get the wide and move on, and because you don't have time to get all the close-ups and medium. So, but one thing you always want to think of when you're deciding on your shot is how will people react to this shot, and what is the following shot coming up right after that? What are you trying to convey? So, what is this shot saying by itself, and sort of in context with the shot that follows it directly, and then in a sense the totality of the scene in how you shot it. So again, we have the wide shot. Pretty obvious what it is. It's wide. It's establishes the scene and geography, lets you know where you're at. It can capture more action. If you watch a lot of uh, action movies, you might see a lot of cuts, going on, and that's to hide it. And sometimes directors like to just hold on a wide shot so they can really show off, like in Mad Max, like this, the effects that they did and everything like that, to just kind of see more of what's going on at a given moment. So again, that establishing shot is usually a wide. If you think of the sitcoms like Friends and Seinfeld, they always have that, where they have that music transition, that bow 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 bow, and you see an outside of a building, tilting up. That's to establish where the heck are we, right? And that's something you generally want to do in every scene. You can always start in a close up. Maybe there's something specific in the scene, right? That maybe it's like a boom, we're close up on something, and then we got to pull back and establish where the heck are we. You should always start with a good establishing shot. That's always a wide. Where are you? What is the geography of the vitamin? Who are the characters in the room, and where are they positioned? So very important to know that you want to start with that wide, start with that establishing, and then we'll talk about the master scene method in a moment and why starting with the wide is important. Full shots, as I mentioned before, is just to fit all the character in the frame. So if it's important, like in Django, to show the kind of standoff moments and things like that, if we really want to emphasize the character, we want to see all of them. Medium shots bring you closer to the action. They're all about giving you more information, kind of bringing you focusing your attention more on something, and it eliminates background distraction. So the closer the camera is to the actors, the more intimate we're getting with them. And that doesn't mean physically closer. You could be zoomed in, but the closer we're framed to the character, the more intimate we're getting with them. So medium shots are really where we're starting to get all about the character, the relationships, the dynamics of what's going on. Close to a wide, we're still getting a lot of information in terms of what's going on in the scene around them, but we're focusing our attention on specific characters. And it's all about aligning with these characters too. We kind of live vicariously through them. We go on this journey with them. We become them. So we want to get closer to them. But, sometimes a close up is too close. So we live a lot in mediums. Comedy kind of lives in the medium shot. It's not overly dramatic. It's not, it's a little bit more aware of itself, I guess you could say. So the close up focuses attention on a specific detail, and it creates a large impact. And it says to the audience, hey, look at this right now. Put all your attention right here, close up on Hannibal Lecter, right? So we're right there with him. We're feeling that craziness that he brings with him when we're that up close. It's meant to frighten us in this case, right? But the close up could be other things. It could be the character processing information. It could be again, the closer we're in, the more intimate. So we're involving ourselves in this conversation and what's going on, and we want to hear every little detail. Um, you know, Sometimes I think of close-ups more like the icing on a cake. I personally, you don't really want to overdo them because your audience is just going to be emotionally drained too long. And kind of more on the extreme end. Like if we had to watch a whole movie just up there, you'd be like, okay, this is getting too much. So when you really want that audience to feel a good boom, right? Get in there on a close up. Okay. And then we also have single, two, three, four, and crowd shots. And that's just the number of faces of characters in the shot, not background. I mean, necessarily, we're talking about the characters. So this would be an example of a medium two shot. Two characters framed hip up, right? And we have two in there. So medium two shot. And then also in this shot, you could technically call it a 50-50, which is that there's a balance between the characters in the shot. And that's usually to show um, there's always shots are kind of always like a coin. There's two sides to them. So a 50-50 shot can show balance between um, two characters, that there's a relationship, there's some form of dynamic between them where there's an equality in some regard. Now, that could be like husband and wife, like that there's a oneness to them and that the balance of their power is equal. But it is also for like a standoff, right? That it could also be a confrontational sort of a shot. So it just depends on how you frame it and what you're using it for. And then we have clean versus a dirty shot. So a camera angle or framing choice that includes an element such as a body part, object, or a structure that slightly obstructs or obscures the primary subject, creating a sense of depth. And that's it can also kind of be to show where other characters are. So this is an example of a clean. We don't have anything really competing with the frame. But if you look over in this one, see how we're getting just a little bit of this other character that's kind of, we're matching the eye line to show who this character is speaking with, and there's just little bits of it. So they call that dirty. And again, it just depends on what you as the director are going for. So the master scene method, we want to start with so when you get to your shoot, or better yet, while you're planning your shoot, I guess I should say, is when you are looking at your scene and you're trying to decide how you want to shoot it, you want to start with your wide shots. And the reason for that, especially with low budget filmmaking, is because I don't want to say something's always going to go wrong, but something always could go wrong. So you get to a location. Let's say you're shooting in at the university, and you say, I need a classroom to film in from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock. So you have 2 hours, and you get there, and you're set up, and you get your wide shot, and you film the scene from start to end in the wide, and then you start to move on to your medium shots, and your lead actor gets a call that their child is sick and they need to go. Well, if you had started with your medium shots, you don't have the whole scene. You have again, remember that the medium's getting in and kind of getting closer to one character. So if we shoot the wide shot, we shoot the whole scene from beginning to end in a wide shot, we have the scene. So if something happens, we go over time and an actor has to leave. Or an actor, probably more common that happens, is somebody crucial to the production, like an actor, is late, or the lighting people, something happened that you can't actually film. So maybe you're left with less time and you're forced to shoot a wide shot of the whole scene. Now, if your shot is a giant, the scene is like one long take and a close up, okay, that's different. But if you understand the point I'm getting, we start with our wide, we shoot the whole scene from start to finish in the wide, and then you get the medium shots that you need. You don't need to always film the whole scene from start to finish, but you get your medium shots and then your close ups. Now, obviously, if there is some, not just the shot that you really, really want, but the shot that is integral to the story, and you're running out of time, and say it's a close up, like you have to get this specific close up shot, then of course do that. But this is just the method, right? So we want to go wide, medium, close, then get your required insert shots, any reaction shots of characters, and then any additional shots, time permitting, that you might sometimes when you're there you realize, oh, I'd love to get a pickup shot. That's what you would refer to it as, a pickup of something that wasn't scheduled or planned, but you realize either you need, or maybe you kind of started to realize, hey, this would be cool. Again, that is not, if you realize it's critical, then you need to move it up. But if you have a plan, stick to your plan until you know you have time to get it. So that's kind of the way I do things, and again, it just becomes a practical way of doing it as well. All right, shot angle. So again, it's a little bit uh, obvious what I mean, but it's just placing that camera at that eye level. And that just, again, we as humans in our day-to-day conversations, we look at people eye level usually. We have conversations there. We spend more of our time kind of at eye level with everything. But we can also kind of see things from a low angle. And I'm going to talk about low and high angle. And if you get confused, just know the low or high refers to the placement of the camera, or you can look at it as the vantage point of the audience. So a low angle gives greater size to objects, and it can make them more imposing, like Batman, right? He looks tough, he looks big, he looks stronger. It can make things just seem that much bigger, like the more kind of extreme that angle becomes. So high angle can make objects or characters appear smaller and less imposing, right? So sometimes you'll hear this as the bird's eye view or God's eye view, that we're so high and kind of looking down, but characters can become smaller when we're up high. Now, much like everything else, there's no hard and fast rule to when you have to use this. You can make a character look small many different ways. So it's about utilizing the tool of photography, cinematography, videography, however you want to put it, and knowing how the audience reacts to shots like this. There's another angle called the canted. Sometimes you'll hear it as a Dutch tilt angle. And if you just kind of notice, see how the stairs, everything's just crooked. Something crazy is going on in the world right now. This might not be as obvious anymore because now that we're living in the age of television and cameras have gotten tiny, the camera's just running all around. It's not locked down on a tripod as much anymore. It's out, it's moving, it's constantly in flux. So we don't know or appreciate this as much because it's just become ad nauseum. Like it's just everywhere. So it's like everything we're watching at every moment is kind of off tilt, if you will. But again, if you want to show kind of the world is not balanced, is how I think of it. And you don't always have to get this extreme with it either. All right, we have point of view shots. So this is just kind of a shot and a reverse shot, but we see a character and then we cut to what they see. We can refer to that as a point of view. We have over the shoulder. Usually this is just for a conversation, and it's to really show the eye line of the characters kind of at a kind of a back and forth. And then it also kind of depends on the dynamic of those characters, how you want to frame it. Look how over here, this character takes up more of Leonardo DiCaprio's frame, and over here, Leonardo DiCaprio takes up less of the frame. So this character is kind of intruding a little bit more, you could argue. So how much of your character over the shoulder are we? Sometimes now you see it more where you kind of do over the shoulder, but it's behind both of the characters. And it's kind of a cool twist. And again, the shot, reverse shot, the Coen brothers do it very well. Kind of like the over the shoulder is just we see one shot and then we see the reverse shot. And again, we can kind of see that this character is in more, but the more like over the shoulder we are is more about maintaining that eye level. The Coen brothers kind of do more of a shot, reverse shot, like clean singles, like that in their conversations versus that they don't do quite as often. But I did give you a Coen brothers over the shoulder video at the end of this to watch, that you can kind of see some examples. Reaction shots. I mentioned these before. These are just characters as they're taking in information. They're not talking, they're not really doing, they're reacting to the information that's presented to them. That could be a bomb going off, that could be just a character talking, right? And this does a few things. It keeps them alive in the scene. It allows the audience to align with characters, right? We want to know how are you reacting to what was just said? Oh, I should react that way. And then it also provides a cutaway for the edit if needed. And what I mean by that is, let's say you have a scene that you in your mind can are envisioning that it's just going to be one shot, one take, right? It's just gonna camera's gonna roll. It's not gonna cut until this person's done with their speech. Well, let's say you do it twice. You do the scene twice, and the first time they do the first half of their lines perfectly, but the second half has a little flub. It's not awful, but it's a little bit. And on their second take, it's just the opposite. Their speech in the beginning isn't as good, but at the end it's better. So if you have a reaction shot to cut to, you can take the best part of take one and the best part of take two and just match them together and hide it with a reaction shot. So that is a great thing to get if you need something to potentially cut away to in the edit. Reaction shots can sometimes save a scene. So make sure, and it's crucial because you're not always scripted. Like you don't always think of that when you're filming because it's not like if somebody's talking, you're not always thinking, hey, what is so and so thinking about this speech right now? So it's important. And when we get to editing, I'll show you a scene from Back to the Future about how important reaction shots can be. All right, then we have camera movement. So we're kind of looking at this camera from the side over here. So tilt is just up and down. And then we're assuming it's on a tripod. A crane is it's kind of maintaining its angle, but the camera itself, the level is changing. A zoom is the camera is stationary, but through the mechanism of the lens, it's getting the focal point is changing, so we're zooming in and getting closer. And then dollying, where the camera is physically getting closer or further away from the object. All right, so now this is the top of the camera. We're looking down on a camera. A pan is when the camera generally stationary, panning left to right. Tracking shot is it's maintaining the direction it's pointing, but the physical camera is moving left to right, tracking with an object or following a scene. Think Moonrise Kingdom or Wes Anderson. He does a lot of tracking shots. This is a scene on the PDF you'll be able to watch, and it shows the difference between a handheld camera. Well, let's just play it. It's not long. So right here, we have a handheld. I'm sorry, a steady cam. See how it's smooth movement? Let me go back. All right, we have smooth camera movement. Smooth camera movement. So they had it on some kind of device, and now we have this handheld, which gives it that sort of documentary, that realism, cinema verite, however you want to call it, slice of life. Two differently kinds of movement. You know, one is more kind of jumble, one is smooth. We're gliding along. Everything's okay at this moment. We're just moving. All right, so let's compose our shots. We can balance them like this, where we have object in the foreground and background kind of balanced on this. And then we have two shots that are kind of a little unbalanced. It feels like the weight's just off. Balance can be very symmetrical. So sometimes it's like if that's not what you're going for, you have to start to think what is perfect symmetry feel like to the audience? What are we saying that at any given moment? So balance isn't always 100% necessary. You can unbalance a shot for sure, and it mean a lot. From the King's Speech, if you've ever seen this, um, where oh my gosh, Colin Firth. I'm drawing a blank all of a sudden, but I know King's Speech, and it's about the king who had a stutter, and he had to go to like a vocal coach, and very shy, kind of going through a lot. So in this case, an unbalanced shot worked perfectly. His world is unbalanced. He's almost blending into this wall. So yes, you can by all means use unbalance. It's again, what are you going for? And sometimes finding the balance, no pun intended, between a shot like this and a shot like this becomes important. That's when you start to kind of get shots like this, where you have some depth in your balance. Okay, center framing. Kind of exactly what it sounds like. You're putting your characters dead center of the action, again, to create a different type of balance. Sometimes, like in kind of superhero framing, it's to show their power as well. But it really focuses your eye when they're in the center. We have subframing, where that's kind of a frame within a frame. Probably one of the most famous in film history, from The Graduate. And that's can, again, be done for different reasons. Are we trying to make our character feel claustrophobic? Is there something going on? Just becomes another way of telling a story. We want to go into a room that we know we're shooting in and see, are there any lines that can potentially lead the audience towards what you as the director want them to look at? And we don't have to do that, again, over the top. Sometimes it can be, subtle, like everything just kind of moving towards what you want to look at, right? The lines are moving us towards where the director is wanting us to look. You kind of hear this term. It's a more of a theatrical term, but mise en scène is just the placement in the frame. It can also kind of refer to the movement of actors, how the scene plays out, the blocking, the placement of everything within the frame. How is it showing any kind of power dynamic between two characters? What is it telling the audience? And that's really, again, what you're keeping in mind. Couple things to keep in mind. There's this rule called the 180-degree rule. And let's say we have two characters talking. This is the way I do it. I make an imaginary line down their noses. Okay? And then I have to choose, do I want to film on this side of that line or this side of that line? Okay? I can put, if I choose this side, I can put the camera anywhere I want on this line, on this side, anywhere, okay? As close to them as I want to be, right? Once I move the camera to this side, they flip. When I project it up onto a screen, they'll flip, right? So orange dude goes from right to left. And you don't want that. Can it happen? Yeah, if you're Stanley Kubrick, Jack's on the left, now Jack is on the right. Here's another kind of way of seeing it, and where it can happen the most is usually two characters talking in some kind of a conversation. So we find that line, and then this is our first shot. Second shot, we could see the characters remain where they were on the same side of the frame. So it's consistent. So if we don't do that, this is what happens a lot, is they're talking and then it does this, and it'll just throw your audience off. So this is why also we need to establish the geography of our scene really well, and the audience kind of gets an idea of where everybody's at. This can be broken generally if you change the line. So if the line moves, like usually it's done because a character moves, right? So like, let's say this character here then decides to walk this way, and now we can kind of reestablish a new line. Generally, the safest though is to do this is to kind of go uh, how it's like a direct flip, I guess, like kind of dead center of them. I've seen that done, and again, it's is the room being uh, kind of utilized right to where we know exactly where everybody's at in the geography. Table scenes with a lot of people require a lot of planning to make sure that everything that you're on the correct side of the line. We also have this term called the aspect ratio, and you could kind of see the difference, and it's really the framing. So like you're probably watching this on your computer or a phone. So we're talking about the framing, that ratio of the height to the width to the height, and some are more cinematic. So this used to be, if you're, I'm 41, so if you're around my age, you remember having a TV, and TVs were more square, right? So for film to compete with uh, television, is they started to come up with these new kind of widescreen, just because it was so different. And of course, then TV went to more of a widescreen, but you can sometimes see cinema being more of a different aspect ratio, and that's why you'll see if a film like this gets watched on a like something like this, you'll get the black bars. Vice versa, if you watch something like an old TV show uh, on your phone, you'll get, they're called pillar boxes. So that's that black, and that's just to get it framed in. We can kind of see what happens when we change the aspect ratio. We can see why film, when we're watching it, at a theater, why we would want a different, more cinematic aspect ratio. This is the one I tend to live in. This kind of 1920 by 1080 standard, that 16 by 9. But occasionally I've shot this too. And that you can always kind of, the other is you can film in like 4K, and then in post you can change your aspect ratio a little bit too. All right, I like to collect, um like, I've kind of just over the years, like, oh, different shots I liked, I've just kind of kept them around and use that to study, like, how did they frame this? Take stills from your favorite movies, and really examine what they did, and why they did it. So we have a center full shot, it's a single, close up single, kind of 50-50, right? Just the composition, you could just kind of study it. Like, the picture's worth 1,000 words, so start putting those words together as you're looking at shots. I kind of do that just all the time to see, okay, how are they doing this? They're trying to show loneliness, and the like an old man lost in a sea of tombstones, right? And he is guilty. He knows he, or thinks he should be there. Or isolation. His character is closed in. The door's about to close on his life, right? The loneliness, the isolation. Uh, when Clarice is almost in a prison herself, framed in such a way where she's trapped in the guilt of her father's death, and what happened, and she's trying to silence those lambs, right? We talked about the 50-50, how it can also kind of be a dual shot almost when there's conflict. So it's not always just about the relationship being good. It could be a great confrontational shot. We got a nice sort of a cowboy extreme close up. High angled shot really does a good job of showcasing fear. Nice symmetrical shots. Draw your eye in. And strange, bizarre movies that you could spend the rest of your life trying to figure out, but had pretty shots. Again, if you've never seen The Graduate is film school in a movie. It's you could probably learn most about filmmaking from this movie. All right, so why is this important? I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself on this. I moved this slide around and now I'm regretting it. So we have options when we're filming, and we want to understand how the camera works because it's going to drastically change what our film looks like. So go with me here. We have this scene of two characters. Now let's look at it not just from a photography standpoint, but more importantly, relationship standpoint. All right, so these two pictures right here, we can tell are the same. So let's look on this side first. We have two guys standing right here, and then the camera is zooming in. So we got a wide shot. Now we move to kind of a closer wide, just in more, still a wide, but they're kind of getting closer. And then they zoomed in to uh, close up. And see how they're kind of overlapping each other? It almost looks like a friendship, right? Maybe two guys waiting, for a car, or two people who work together, but somehow we kind of get a sense that they know each other and that they're closer. So again, the camera zoomed in, wide shot, a little bit closer, closer. Okay. Now, they didn't move the characters at all. They stated they're in the exact same spots, but what they did was they moved the camera in halfway each time. So now look at the relationship. We started on a wide shot here, so it's still set to the same focal length, right? We'll talk about focal length in a second, but trust me, they seem far apart, and they seem even further apart. So two actors standing in the exact same spot can have two completely different stories being told just based on the fact of the camera zooming in or moving in closer. So, what is the story you're trying to tell? What is the relationship? And what is the audience supposed to be taking away? So, we want to utilize these tools in our understanding of them. So, we want to talk about how to achieve that cinematic look. And I think it's more about experience, a good team, and a mastery of the basic camera settings. I think a couple of you told me you had some background in photography. So some of this might seem 101, but hopefully you learn how to get that cinematic look. So cameras work on a principle of light exposure, whether on a film stock or a digital sensor. Basically, you're exposing the camera to light and it's recording that. It's taking pictures. So we want to utilize the principles of the camera to get a cinematic look. I look at it like this. I love Bob Ross. I tried painting. This here is like one of my I did back when I was a kid. And I had to learn how the different brushes worked and when to use a different brush in order to make my painting. Cinematography is just painting with light. It's an expression you'll hear. There's a book on that as well. Beautiful book on cinematography, that it's just painting with light. So we need to learn the different brushes and the different brush strokes. So the brushes of the filmmaker really kind of come down to the camera and the lenses. We want to talk about some terms like focal length, which I had mentioned, frame rate or frames per second, the different exposure settings, shutter, aperture, ISO, and then color temperature. So the nice thing with cameras is they're all the same. They just have different interfaces. So once you learn these principles, all you need to do is get a camera and put it to the settings that you want, and boom. It's not quite as simple as that, but it's not as hard maybe as you would have thought. So the focal length that I mentioned is a distance measured in millimeters from the film plane to the optical center of the lens. So you'll see this on cameras where that sensor is located. So you'll hear like a 85 millimeter or a 50 or some different terms for the different lenses. Like each of these lenses, if you look on them, if they're not a zoom lens, they have a fixed number set to them. So it gives you an idea if it's a wide, uh, uh, if it'll help you get a wide shot, a medium, close up, or whatever. And we'll refer to them as a normal, a wide, or a telephoto lens. So yeah, you'll hear these lengths: 200 millimeter, 85, 50, 35, 24. There's a gamut that they can run. And so they're categorized. The first is the normal, and that's typically lenses or a focal length from 35 to 60 millimeters. And the reason it's normal is because that's what the eye, that's kind of the range that the eye sees. I think the eye sees around 52 to 55 millimeter, um, would kind of fall under that category of a field of view. So what a field of view is, this is much easier to demonstrate in person. But if you hold out both of your arms in front of you, like right in front of your eyes, and to where your hands are almost touching, that is and we imagine that that is like we're looking through our lens. If our hands are almost touching, that's a close field of view. It's measured in degrees. So the further you move your hands from each other to where your arms are almost spread out wide, like you're giving a big hug, that's a wide field of view. All right. So it's just, if again, we're looking at that as though we're looking through a lens. Zooming in is our hands close together. Zooming out, it's like a wide shot. Okay. So normal, if we were to, and I meant degrees earlier, I think for the eyesight, um, we can kind of find like around 55 degrees is kind of our field of view. Um, Somewhere in there. But that's kind of where they came up with that normal focal length. So it's really a good one if we're trying to just portray everything that's going on right now. There's nothing too extreme. A lot of directors will kind of pick one focal length and stick to it for a film. Not always. Sometimes they change, but a lot of times they stick to one. Telephoto lenses, so we're zoomed in where our hands are almost touching. That's typically a lens 85 millimeters and over with a 30 to 10 degree field of view. And what this does is it compresses space so that we feel closer to the camera, but objects. So, like if you look at the power lines here, they're compressed together. They feel flat, like they're sandwiching in on each other. So the wide focal length does the opposite. See if you look like back on the buses, see how they feel bowed? It kind of gives a little bit. The more wide we go of the on our lens, the more bowing we're going to kind of get on things, and it kind of distorts the image a little bit. Okay, so some lenses have a fixed focal length. Those are called prime lenses, and you get a better look from them. So that just means that it's a specific numbered lens, and that's it. You can't get a wider shot, you can't get closer without moving the camera. So zoom lenses can just zoom in and out. They have multiple focal lengths. You don't get as great of a shot. Obviously, this is old, but you can see zoom, right? Some can kind of do extreme things. Now the pro is sometimes your day can move a lot faster with a zoom lens sometimes. So it just depends on what you're trying to do. Generally, you want to get as good quality of lenses as you can get. Again, we can see leaving the camera stationary in one spot what going up from a wide to a telephoto lens can look like. So, have you ever wondered why film looks like film? Reality shows, the news, commercials, sports, YouTube videos, they look different. So what's going on here? And really it's frame rate. And frame rate is just how many pictures per second is the camera taking. And then we get, when those pictures come together, we get the illusion of movement, right? Really, you're just seeing a bunch of pictures in succession, and that there's not actually really movement. So, oops, I apologize. This slide somehow got away from me. The fewer the frame rates per second, the more motion blur there is. More frames per second, it's crisper, right? So this is 60 frames per second. So we have more pictures to fill in the blank. Like if I'm moving my arm up and down, left and right, in between those pictures, like if it's spaced out more between picture one and picture two, there's going to be a little bit more blur. So because there's, pictures filling in the blank, there's less blur. So the news looks really crisp, right? I don't even know honestly, and I did news what they would shoot like a typical news in. I'm thinking it's 60, but it might be more. I know like sports are like 200 because of slow motion. They want the slow motion really crisp. If you're shooting at 24 frames per second, slow motion is going to be really clunky looking. So here's the nice thing with film. All you have to do is set your camera to 24 frames per second, and you're in the correct cinematic frame rate. Don't have to change it, don't have to do anything. The only time you would is if you want to shoot slow motion, or occasionally they slow this down for like action scenes. So I'm not going to overwhelm you. If you need to shoot slow motion, let me know and I'll I'll walk you through that. But to get a cinematic look, to get the right amount of motion blur, you want 24 frames per second. And they tried, during the silent era in the early days of film, they tried different frame rates to kind of see what worked the best. And Hollywood just kind of stuck to 24 frames. All right, so the cinematic setting, 24 frames per second. Commercials, yeah, you're looking at like 30 frames per second. A lot of times YouTube is 60 frames. Um, so it just kind of depends on what you're going for. So set the frame rate. If you don't see 24 frames per second on your camera, go to the closest number. A lot of times you'll see 23.98, and that just had to do with when they digitized cameras and to make them kind of work throughout the world, and to get everybody on the kind of correct spot. And the cameras operate different in different parts of the world. There's like a North American, a European, Asian. That's really getting into the technical things of things. Don't worry about it. So just always set that to 24 frames per second. And if you have a choice between progressive and interlacing, go with 24p. It doesn't always give you that option. Interlacing is becoming less and less. That was something more on older cameras, older digital cameras. But if you see that option, go with that. You may see options for picture quality like 1080p. 1080p is the standard. You might see it as 1920 by 1080 or 16 by 9 or HD. I would stick with that. You can do 4K, but if it's you just kind of going out, 4K can kind of get it's easy to get it into this frame rate, or excuse me, this aspect ratio. But if you're just kind of going out and filming for now, I'd stick to this one. So this is kind of what your target wanting to hit when looking on the settings for your camera. iPhones, smartphones shoot at different frame rates as well, just based on the model that you're using. Excuse me. I'm a little fluey today, so I apologize. But your phones can switch as well. If you need help, you can Google how to set the frame rate on your cameras on your phone, or you can ask me. It depends on what model that you're using. All right, so now let's talk about exposure, the amount of light, and really it's just the amount of light allowed to reach the image plane on the sensor. So if it's overexposed, too much light, underexposed, too little. The areas that you want to control this are shutter, aperture, and ISO. So shutter speed, how long the camera is exposed to light. Aperture is how much light is let into the camera, and ISO is how sensitive the camera is to light. Often you'll hear this kind of expressed in terms of stops. You'll hear it if you're on a set, stop up or stop down, and that's just when you're adjusting one of the exposure controls. when you're altering it by one stop, it's doubling or halving the light. It kind of comes to be a little bit of a dance to get the correct setting, but it's really actually not that as hard as you would think. Um, so let's talk shutter speed. For those of you that might have learned in photography, think of it like the gate that is timed to allow light to pass to the sensor. So hold up your left hand with your palm facing out and imagine that's your plane. Now, um, put your other hand facing your palm in front of you, and if you were to kind of make quick motions with the hand that's in front, up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, like a gate, that's just what it's doing. And if you remember like old phones that go click, click, that's what you're hearing. um, so you'll see it measured in fractions like 150, 160, 120. It's really important that you make sure that the shutter is set correctly. um, but it's an easy rule to do. And once you set it, you forget it. So to get the shutter speed, you double the frame rate, um, which if we're shooting in 24 frames per second, we're shooting in 1 over 48. 148. Oh, it's basically double the frame rate. And that's really all you have to know. I didn't strike this line out. It's just the slide did it because it's putting these lines in there. And I didn't see it did that on this one at first when I brought it over. But when you get that shutter speed, sometimes it won't be 48. Just get to the closest number that's there. So 1 over 50, that'll work fine. It is sometimes expressed only in an angle, and you'll see that on fancier cameras. And you would just want 180 degree. So look at the shutter speed. The slower the shutter, meaning the more light it's allowing uh, to kind of come in. That way we're going to get some blur. So the faster it is, the crisper it is. And we want that perfect cinematic uh, shutter setting. Again, you can kind of see in terms of the brightness that the faster that shutter is opening and closing, the less light is being let in. So the more we open that shutter up, the more light we're letting in. Again, just another way of looking at it in terms of motion blur. Our next exposure control is called the aperture, and it's kind of like the iris in your eye. It's an opening in the camera to allow light to come in. These are actually in the lens. Some have built in, I think, but it's just the opening here of how much light that you're letting in. Sometimes when you're filming outside, you need to use, they're called ND filters. And there's reasons that you maybe want to open your aperture when you're outside. We're going to be talking about depth of field. Sometimes if you want where the background is a little bit out of focus, you need to open up your aperture. But sometimes if you're outside, that lets in too much light. So these become very useful. So we close our aperture, we open our aperture to let in more light. If you've ever seen light meters, if you're using actual film cameras, they can help you find the exact setting you want to be properly exposed. There's kind of some internal digital sensors now that can help you get there as well. They're not exact, but they tell you from the camera standpoint what's correct or what it thinks is correct. Again, we can kind of see what the effect of the opening of the aperture and how it's measured in these f-stops. The way I think of it too is I think I was a little confused by it because you would think like an f8 is more light coming in because 8 is bigger than 1.4. But what I did was I think of the f as a 1, which would then make it a fraction. And so I know 1 over 1.4 is much bigger than 1 over 8. So This again is kind of where we're getting into more of the realm of stuff the cinematographer should know. But I think the director should have a working knowledge of this, because maybe your cinematographer is new or younger or something like that and learning, and you get in a situation where the light is fluctuating. You're outside, maybe clouds are coming in, things like that, and you have to put your heads together to make a decision to get the light where you want it, or the exposure, I guess. So um, as I mentioned, it controls the depth of field. So the larger opening can give you a shallower depth of field. So we get that background out of focus. The smaller the opening, the greater the depth of field. So again, if you go outside, you're going to have to close down your aperture so that you're not overexposed. But sometimes you might want, to get this nice out of focus background so that we're focused just on your character. So that's when those ND filters I was mentioning come into play. Depth of field is just kind of the what is in focus, what isn't in focus, what are we seeing, um, and I think of it as like this. Again, it's just about the story, and this is really what you need to know. Do I need to know what's going on in the background, or do I want to focus on a specific object? So if you think of it as a pool, the shallow end has less water, less focus. The deep end has more water, more focus. What are you wanting as a director for this scene? At the end of uh, this lecture, I have this. I'll send the PDF and you can watch. This is from Citizen Kane. I feel like a few of you have seen this before, but watch in the background as Charles. He's basically getting sold to the bank for the bank to raise him. His parents are wanting him to grow up in a world where he can be rich. They found, was it silver? It's been 10 years since I think silver, and they had all this money and wanted him to become basically someone better than they were. But watch this scene and watch how Charles stays alive. This was the first movie that really utilized that deep depth of field. Uh, Required a lot of light, required a lot of new lenses to get this. So watch it. It's at the end. You should be able to click on it. But the depth of field is also controlled not only by the aperture opening, but the focus distance, the focal length of the lens that we're talking about. The more telephoto it is, the easier it is to get that shallow depth of field. So wide lenses are a little bit harder, but if you're closer to the subject with a wide lens, then you can get that shallow depth of field. But also the image format and the sensor size plays in there too. Then we have the ISO, which is just how sensitive is the camera sensor to the light that's coming in. So generally, you want your ISO lower. The lower the number, the less noise that you get, this kind of digital noise. Um, but sometimes you need more light. Now, the main thing to know is that cameras have a native setting. That is, where do they like to be for their ISO setting? Really, what the ISO is this: when film was made on film, the different film stocks had different light sensitivities. So if you're shooting outdoor or indoor, it made a difference, and this kind of translated over with um, that concept. So most have we like to be between 4 and 800. Um, if it's too bright of a situation, rather than adjust the aperture is where you like it. I just lower the ISO personally. Some people will say, keep it in one area. Again, that's for where it's getting into cinematographer's realm to achieve that look. But again, if you have a light meter and you take it with you as well, that can help you get to the exact right settings that you need to be. But really, I've found myself in these situations, and it's usually when I'm out filming at night and you do have no other option than to bump up your ISO. You can't open up your aperture anymore, and you just need more light. So sometimes you have to shoot that way. Cameras are getting way better about night shooting, though. They just are, and low light situations in general. So if you double the ISO number, you double the light. So if you go from 100 to 200, 200 to 400, 400 to 800, so on and so forth. So principle applies going down as well. If you're somewhere and it's too bright, you can lower it. The next is white balance. Tells the camera which light source you're using and renders whites accurately according to the light source. So our eyes adjust to white automatically, but different lights like the sunlight, tungsten light, fluorescent light, they're different color spectrums, and the camera doesn't adjust to white automatically. So you have to tell the camera what is the source of light coming in. Is it sunset, sunrise? Are you indoors? What kind of bulbs are being used indoors? Moonlight, daylight. There's all sorts of different ones, and there's a lot of presets on the cameras now that can get you to the right white balance. It's also something you can correct in post. I wouldn't recommend it, but it's fixable in post. There's also different card stocks and things like that you can get, um, that calibrate the color for you so that it takes any guesswork out. We can kind of see what warmer tones look like and what cooler tones look like. So color temperature is measured in Kelvin, and warmer colors are lower color temperature, and cool colors are higher color. Again, what are you going for? So here's a little kind of a little cheat sheet, and you can click this and it'll take you there. And then just some more of the settings for your camera. Okay, so that's the camera. Let's get into a new topic, and that is lighting. And the same thing kind of applies. You just need to know the basic terms to start to communicate with your camera department. The most basic concept of lighting is usually keeping it realistic. How do we expect light to work? Uh, how when I walk into a room, I expect the light to function a certain way. When I go outside, I expect it to function a certain way. Like light doesn't generally come from the ground, right? It comes from above us. So we want to maintain that realistic light as much as we can. Like nothing seems out of place. Like that light source seems odd, right? I can kind of get an idea of when I establish where my light source is. So see in the background, bright, darker. Okay, well the light source is over here, therefore face is a little bit brighter on this side. We see more light here. We're kind of looking for that continuity. This is an interesting film. It's called Barry Lyndon. It was shot using a lens from NASA because all they used was candlelight. Well, candles don't give off that much light, so they needed something super sensitive that could pick up candlelight. But again, we can kind of tell from the time of day even how the sun works to light something when it's directly kind of overhead. How it would look. Then we have kind of pictorial lighting, which is more for the thematic effects. We're not always sure of the source of light, and it behaves in a designed, more manipulated way, and it can kind of include color light as well. So if you remember Dr. Strangelove, if you've ever seen it, they're in this bunker and there's these kind of giant beams of light coming in, that we don't really know the source, but it's kind of more to give it that effect of they're in this cavernous underground layer or something. Again, Silence of the Lambs. the lighting is designed and purposeful, kind of can evoke a feeling. Uh, and then we have hard light versus soft light, and they're actually pretty much exactly what they sound like. Hard light is directional, it has high contrast and fast fall off, and that just means there's clear lines on the shadows. Soft light is diffused, it's not as directional, and there's slow fall off, meaning lower contrast, and the shadows fade gradually, right? So um, let's look at some hard lighting, right? The sun creating hard shadows, right? There's not much to it. The sun up at noon, very hard lighting. The sun at sunset, soft lighting. Again, very rigid shadows done purposefully for the genre of film noir. Soft lighting. See how that just kind of gradually fades? That sunset kind of soft lighting. That picture's a little distorted. I apologize. When I stretched it, it kind of took it, but really no harsh shadows anywhere. Just kind of a soft. We all look good at sunset because the shadows just kind of dissipate and they're just soft and they're not really harsh. We all just kind of glow nicely, with some nice soft lighting. So to get soft lighting, if you're filming, and all you have are directional lamps or something like that, you just put some kind of diffusion. I've seen everything from white sheets to foam core boards, and you kind of bounce light in different places. But um, if you think of light kind of like those bouncy super balls, um, it's very directional. It hits and bounces off things just kind of like that. White really lets it bounce. It reflects it kind of back out there versus black will absorb that light. So sometimes actually, if you really want a side of a face to be completely black, people will hold up um, black flags, they're called, and to really take away the light. But white, when light is passed through it like that, it'll diffuse it. And there's a number of different things you can, as long as the light's kind of getting through it. Um, Clouds are actually diffusion too. The atmosphere kind of diffuses light. Again, that's why we get that soft lighting at that time. So we can see with some form of diffusion and without. Not diffused, diffused. Again, there's not always a right or wrong way. It's just knowing what the light can do and how to utilize it. So, what genres do we typically see hard or soft lighting? Well, in my mind, I think horror film tends to have really hard lighting. Really sharp lines. Action films, soft lighting, we see more drama, comedy, and things like that. Again, not always. Light and character. It can reveal the nature or state of mind of a character. It can indicate some sort of inner conflict or external conflict. Can be used to glamorize, can be manipulated to make you feel for a character a certain way. That halo that characters can get, oh, they're a good person. They're lit up that way. Uh, and The Godfather, for as great of a film as it is, it got criticism at first for the lighting because they kept the eyes dark, right? And it's like, wow, it looked like raccoon eyes. And it was designed purposeful to be like, why police wear sunglasses. We don't want to know what they're thinking. And they went for that with this, which wasn't really done. But it illuminates themes in the story. So light becomes a powerful tool. All right. So how do we achieve this great look? It's pretty simple. It's called 3-point lighting. And light gives objects 3 dimension. It's like the primary purpose of light. We see things in it and it gives them shape and dimension. So when I'm filming the scene, I decide where my primary light is going to be. That's called my key light. All right. That's kind of my source, the key. And then whatever I need lit, I want to focus at usually about 45 degrees off of them, or just depending, again, just depending on the scene. But for purposes of this, I kind of start at about 45 degrees. If we look at this as a compass, so drawing lines straight up and down, and if we got one line here and one line here, right, I'm kind of looking right in the middle. Um, so I start with that key light, and then I usually go into backlight, and they all kind of provide a different role, but the backlight does exactly what you would think. It gives a little pop to the head, the neck, the shoulders, anything like that of your actor, so that they stand out from the wall or the crowd or anything else. They just kind of have a little extra pop to them. And then the fill light is kind of determinant on, do you want how many shadows do you want that the key light isn't getting? It fills in the shadows. So here we have the key lights on. So the key light is coming right to left. And now we have the key light on plus the backlight. So we're getting a little bit more light up in here, a little bit, on the shoulder, kind of coming in here. And then the fill light is coming left to right, and it's filling in these shadows in the jaw under here. You want to light somebody good, make their jaw and under here, under their neck, always kind of focus on that. People will appreciate you. So key plus back, key plus fill. So we have this is kind of important terms. We have high key lighting, which is a low ratio between the key and fill. So there's even illumination and few shadows. We have low key lighting, where there's a high ratio between key and fill, meaning there's a lot more key light than fill light. Large areas of the frame are left underexposed, and there's shadows. So high key, very even, very commercial or YouTube sort of looking. Low key, this looks a little bit more cinematic to me. We have shadow, we have dimension, right? It's very dramatic lighting. High key, again, you can use it for film. The majestic, we have soft high key lighting. I can see source of light is coming from over there, but I can still see some backlight, a little shoulder light. It's hitting the hair, right? Low key lighting. We just have really one source of light, and that is the key light. And then we're getting these dramatic shadows. This is called Rembrandt lighting, where you get that triangle right there. So lighting motivation, the light should seem like it is coming from a source, the sun, a lamp, a window. Show the source and build a scene around it. The source, such as a lamp, is called a practical light, right? So that's not actually, I wasn't on the set, but I'm going to reckon they had, an actual film light kind of shaping this scene. But we as the audience are like, well, where's the light coming? These are called practicals. Oh, it's practically lighting, and it's moving and motivated in a way that I would assume light would work. That light is gradually dissipating in the background, right? So it's hitting the actress in ways I would assume accurate to light. So we got two practicals. We have a window, we have a lamp, and again, the light is moving in a way that I would believe. More motivation, kind of see how it works. So this would again be low key with a practical right there. Lighting continuity across shots. We expect the light to remain similar in a scene. That can happen often when you're changing the lights around so that a new character, maybe you got to punch in some light and it can kind of change things. So just remember, where is your motivation for the light in the scene, and then stay with it. We have lighting conventions, and a convention is just an agreed look of a film of a particular genre between the director and the audience. It's really that which we have come to expect. So yeah, you can break it, whereas like Hot Fuzz is kind of comedy, action, horror. They use that hard lighting. Midsummer is a horror, but it used soft lighting and a lot of daylight. In fact, all daylight. So it kind of broke that convention of lighting. Foam core is a great way. You can get that at just hardware stores or Walmart or something like that. It's really good for outdoor shoots if you can't take lights with you and you're getting in. You obviously need to be a little bit closer to your characters, but it also serves as a great way of doing a fill light. Like if you don't um, if you kind of just want some of the shadows taking out, but not all, it's a great way to get some light in there. One other thing I do sometimes, especially for low budget, is pop a lot of. It's going to make it uneven, but sometimes you got to run in and gun it. Get a lot of light up on the ceiling, let it bounce down, try and get people even. Um, and it's kind of a run and gun situation tactic that I've done in the past because again we assume lights are coming. They're almost always overhead. I mean, um, yeah, that's just kind of way it works. So it's a little workaround. If you don't make a plan for everything, it won't happen. Or at best, you'll run over schedule and over budget. And we're really trying to work on a low budget. So you just got to be prepared. The more prepared you are, the better everything's going to come out. So let's look at planning. You have a script. Maybe you wrote that short scene that I was talking about. So you're going to kind of do this a little bit along with me here. Uh, Planning really saves money. I've seen it time and time again. Just really cut the budget down by maybe getting more shots done in a day, being more organized. And set can be chaotic, and it goes by quick. It becomes really crucial. Um, we want to break down our script in terms of locations, actors, time of day, where we have kind of all the gamut of everything that's in the scene. We want to get down on paper. There's different ways you can break it down. There's the big recommendation I would have. It's called Studio Binder, and it will help you break down your script, each individual thing, so that way then you get like a readout of scene one has these characters, these props, needs this background, needs this uh, practical effect or whatever. It helps you get all of those and you go through it one by one. And then we want to plan the shot placement and planning where and how we're going to get our lighting. So we're going to talk about shot lists, line script, storyboarding, and photo boarding, and then scheduling. um, Once you kind of have an idea of how many days that you have, dependent upon your location, you can then make a determination about how many shots you can get. Just remember, the more locations, the more travel time. The more shots, the longer you'll be there. Give yourself plenty of time for everything you do. Don't try and rush it. Um, you know, Again, I feel the more you have it planned, the less you're going to feel stressed about the clock. And always remember, lights, they take time. They take a lot of time on set. Get a first AD on with you. If you're directing, a first AD is the one who's in charge of that breakdown and that schedule, and that's what they're focused on. Who goes what, where, and when. That's really what they're about. So, but stay flexible because factors can change daily. So you need to be able to adapt. And that's again knowing your plan and knowing what it is. It's like, okay, we can't shoot this now. Perfect. Let's get this instead. Because you know the plan that well, you know what could go in. Uh, if you shoot in a house, shoot all the same location and time of day before you move on. So I produced directors film once, and he wanted to shoot it like a play. Like he was so concerned about the actor that he was like, no, I want to shoot this in chronological order. And like there were like 10 or more scenes in the character's bedroom. Probably, yeah, I'd say at least 10, maybe more. And let's just say 10, and five of them took place during the day, and five took place at night. It takes a lot less time to change your actor's clothes than it does to move an entire company and lights and all that. You don't have to shoot in order. Some directors have because they get that luxury when they're famous, but it's just not something I hear of more than maybe once or twice. That I don't know. Maybe more do it than I know of, and maybe more have done it, but certainly it's not the practical way of doing it. And we're low budget directors, so we need to go practical. Most really good actors, they're used to that. You shoot out of order. Maybe the first thing that they're shooting in the morning requires them to cry their eyes out. And then the next scene, they're going to have to laugh like it's the best day of their life. That's acting. So once your lights and everything are set, just, those shouldn't change that much. Maybe the intensity of them, maybe it's not as bright, but, get what you can get done while you can get it done. Start with something easy to begin the day. It gets the team going and a sense of accomplishment. If it doesn't throw things off, sometimes, like, even just getting something as easy as, you know, character A drives up the driveway, gets out of the car, walks into the house, something that's just one shot. Sometimes just getting something like that, it's like, okay, we got it, we're done. And again, keep that master scene method of going from wide to close in your mind. Keep yourself organized, and then make sure your location knows your time frame. I Be very careful. Always get permission. Always get things in writing in your locations. I've seen people like homeowners try and sue films for broken furniture. I had students at a college shot at once because they thought they were on public land, but they were on a farmer's land. So yeah, really build a good relationship with your location. Before you start doing a shot list, take a moment of that script that you wrote and start to think, what is the mood? What is the visual style? Do you see it being cut quickly? Is it slower paced? Are the shots mostly tight, wide? Are they moving? Are they locked down on a tripod? Remember, you're getting a vision, and the shots are there to serve you. There are brushes. So we want to start looking at that. Okay. Now, what you need to do is go back to the script that you just wrote, or maybe one that you have. For all of the scene headings, you need scene numbers. And oops, that was weird. What these do is help us break down scene by scene, and then we can extract all the information we need out of here. We can plan the shots. We can plan for what elements are in this scene. That's why it's important that we're formatted correctly. So go into the software that you're using. You may have to Google it because I'm not sure what you're using. I'll send you a thing on Celtex if you decide to use that. Actually, nope, I already did, I think. I'll resend it. Why not? You'll just have to Google how to add scene numbers. It's usually a little button that you just have to click and it's buried somewhere. But that's the first step. And make sure your script is locked. Make sure you're 100% happy with your script and it's locked. Meaning, if you do all this work to plan it and these numbers change, all the work that you did is going to change. Now, if you're using something like Studio Binder, it may be able to roll with the punches a little bit easier. But if you're doing this by hand or on a Word document or something like that, you need to lock your script down. All right. I like to do what's called a line script. I print out a copy of my script and then I picture I'm in the editing room. And what are the shots that I wish I had had? So this is what I do is I think of all these lines represent a shot from action to cut. And I start to think this shot's going to be a wide shot. This shot's going to be a medium. This is going to be a medium. This is a close up. This is my master. This is a close up, whatever the case may be. I start labeling. I start putting the lines in, and actually, I'll go back and label them after I make my shot list. But I start thinking on the basics. Now we are living in the age of the digital, so theoretically, you could just do all these shots throughout the scene, just action and run the whole scene from top to bottom, and then you have more in your edit to work with. Like I was talking about, like you'll have more. Maybe this is a medium shot of a character, and I want to do it all just that way. I have all the reaction shots in here, and I don't need to go back and just get. I know that this is my medium of this one character. All right, so I'm just kind of visualizing the story. You don't have to start with this one either. These are really done too for the editor so that they have a sense. These lines represent characters at that point that we're not seeing, so or shots that we're not seeing that line delivered on. So it can get a little bit more specific, and this way your editor knows which angle they should be using on when different characters are talking. I think it makes it look clunky. I like to kind of get in there and just edit it blank slate, or better yet, not give my editor preconceived notions of what I want. Let them do their art a little bit, and then obviously if there's something very specific, I'll know that and want that. So and let them know. Okay, now the shot list. So this kind of gets done in tandem with the line script. So this is where you start to label everything. So this will include your scene and shot number, the type of shot, the angle, the lens, any movement, any scene heading info and then any kind of basic description. So shots within a scene are given letter identifiers and not number identifiers. So we've all seen when the slate comes in and we hear shot 1A, take 1. Okay, so go with me. The number here represents the number of the scene in the script. So when you add those numbers into your script, each one of those scenes will be this number. So right now we're shooting the first scene. All right. The letter represents what shot you're on. So instead of putting shot 1, they use shot A. And the reason for that is because if you had a 1 next to a 1, it's going to look like an 11. So some people even slate it by saying a clear word that starts with the letter, like apple, scene 1, apple, take 1. It's getting a little fancy, but it's kind of fun to do. The number of shots in a scene. So like, let's say I'm doing scene 1 and I know scene 1, I just need 2 shots. So I have scene 1A, scene 1B. If I needed 3 shots, it'd be 1C, 4 shots, 1D, all the way down to 1Z. Now, it does happen, especially if you look at films now where there's 100 shots in every scene. If for some reason, God forbid, you go that far, just add another A, scene 1AA. All right. So then when you go into the next scene, it starts over. Now you're on scene 2, shot A, also known as this is your first shot of this scene. So if you follow that master method, it kind of starts to make sense. Okay, we want to shoot 1A will be our wide shot of the scene. 1B will be our most important medium shot. Whatever the case. You want to skip I and O up here only for the same reason, because of that then looking like 11 or 10. All right, so now this is what your shot list will look like again. So this scene, they need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 shots. They're getting a close up, wide shot, medium shot, wide shot, medium shot, extreme close up, extreme close up, extreme close up. And then there's no right or wrong way about always what information. When you and your director of photography get together, you can say, you can make one custom made to you of how you want it. But certainly I would keep information here, descriptions, the all the information that you want your director of photography to know. And again, you can just do this on your own Word doc. There's templates out there, and then I provide you with one as well. So then we're going to take the paper to image. There's overheads, storyboards, photo boards, video boards. An overhead is a diagram to help picture not only the space you'll be working in, but where the camera setups might fall, and also the lighting. It's a rough diagram of the space. It includes the primary players, their blocking, camera setups, camera movement, and again, lighting. I think oftentimes I like having them in there. So this is from an app called Shot Designer, and I really like it. I think it works well for the lighting crew when I'm communicating with them. Sometimes once we have the lights set up and we know they're good, they can then go to these overheads and start setting up the next scenes. So we we have, in film terminology, we have the first position the camera's in, or an actor before they move. This is called their one. And then if there's a movement and they stop, that's their two. And it applies to actors as well, where they're going, so that you can follow the scene, right? So this is a cool little way of envisioning it. And then it can actually do more, that you can go to your location and you can add what the picture looks like, or you can add your storyboards to it. There's a lot you can really do with it. So this is the app. That's what it's called. Storyboarding is just drawing out the kind of the film in sort of that comic book fashion. I've heard Scorsese, when he was a kid, he would just, this is all he do. He'd lay in bed. He grew up sick, and he would just make entire movies of storyboards. I can't draw. Maybe you can. Usually there are people who get hired who are professionals that do this. And again, then they'll have these on set. People can kind of look and know what's going on. You give them to your crew ahead of time, and they're kind of looking at it. So photo boarding is the exact same, except you take pictures. I like that more. Again, I can't draw, but I like going to the location and getting a picture of exactly what it is. I want to go back, really. I'm just realizing I jumped over that on over here. So now once I've made my shot list, then I go back and I designate the number to these. So shot 4B, whatever the case may be. So that this right here, 1A, 1B, 1C, that's then where I go back over and I'll put that on there. So I kind of know the shots I want, and then I make a list of it, and then I go back and I kind of label it. All right. Scouting. Oh, also, I didn't have a representation of it, but you can do video boards, which is just maybe go with a cheap camera and kind of roughly shoot the scene, something like that. I have seen it done. Scouting, finding your locations can be tough. Don't pick just anywhere. Know what your time limits are. Get permission. Get it on paper. Go with as many people in your crew as you can. That way there's not guesswork of, power sources, parking, bathrooms, anything like that. You all know what to expect. Know your surroundings and noises. Are there going to be trains coming by, or is there anything like that? Utilize what you have access to. I shot a film once, and I just needed a room in a hospital. It was a closed down hospital, and it had just closed down, and I just wanted a little area, and they basically gave me a key and said, use any room you want and do anything you want. So that changed things. So then I'm like, I have to utilize this. Know where the fuse boxes are. lights can sometimes take up a lot of energy and blow the fuses. So have that in mind. Know where people are allowed to park. Don't make neighbors upset. Maybe even telling the neighbors that you'll be doing that. If you have money, sometimes people give them, some money if you know you're going to be loud, but telling them is usually enough. Um, Create a scouting report that includes the contact of the location owner and kind of anything else you need. This is okay. I'm going to stop there. We'll talk a little bit more about planning. I know that was kind of a lot to go through. I'm going to escape out of there so you can see. I have some directing tips. I have a video on the depth of field that would be good to watch. Some filming on location stuff, a little bit of information worth listening to. Sorry, you'll have to listen to me again, but kind of a fun way of doing it. Here's a little video on cinematic lighting. This is that I wanted to do this in class together and I forgot to take it out, but this is that scene from Schindler's List. You don't need to watch. This is a little scene study from Fargo about um, conversations and how to shoot them, the over the shoulder versus the singles. And then this is kind of talking more about that idea of the shot, reverse shot. This is from Hitchcock and it shows the power of film. All right, here I sent these in an email, but they're links to production design and audio lectures. This is again more material that I wanted to cover. I think with the constraints of time, it might be hard, but I want to make sure that you have the principles of light, production design, and audio along with the camera. Here's some optional homework. Now that you shot your script, create your own shot list. So if you wrote that short script last week, it'll look like this. And I've just kind of left the basics in there so you can kind of follow along. You can make it however you want. Again, doesn't always have to be. It's a give your director enough that they need to know what's going on. Excuse me, your cinematographer. All right. And then if you want, you can go another step and make a lookbook. So watch the following link and film to create a lookbook for your script. It's a mini lecture on what exactly a lookbook is. But what I want you to do is start by this link right here, is to a film called The Elevator Affair that I shot this in graduate school. And it was a blend of film history and directing. We had to kind of take on a director's style. And also, then I blended it with a history assignment where I got assigned poetic realism, which is the Jean Renoir style of filmmaking from like, we're talking like post pre-war France. So it's based on rules of the game that Renoir did. So anyway, I had to create a lookbook as well for it. So there is the movie. Start there. We shot that in one day for very little, I think $600. And then here's the link to the video that explains what the lookbook is and how to do it. And then here's the PDF example. Here's some film suggestions. These are documentaries about making film, and you'll see how much can go wrong. Burden of Dreams, very good. Lost Soul, very good. If I had to recommend one American movie, just know it's very much rated R for language, so I would avoid little kids in the room. And then The Making of Apocalypse Now. And there's one more, so I'm saying it out loud. I was thinking of it to add, and I'm drawing a blank right now. When the moment came, I drew a blank. It's the one about the making of Lost in. I know. I think it's about um, another making of a film that went completely wrong, and uh, a lot of it, again, you'd look at planning and you just kind of, I wanted you to kind of look at it from this perspective of the other side of the camera, and how filmmaking works, and seeing that even the best of them, things can go wrong, but what could they have done better, or what are lessons you learn as a filmmaker. So kind of a fun exercise that you can do. And if you have any questions about anything between now and next class, please feel free to hit me up. I'm so sorry about my voice and all the sniffling I've been doing through this, but I hope you enjoy this. I hope you got some good information from it. So hit me up. Happy filmmaking, and God bless y'all.